Jingle bells, carol bells, throbbing in the road. The battle hero walks the field. Jingle bells, carols bells.
You smell that, folks? The air is crisping, the leaves are crunching, hocus pocus memes are out in force, and that disgusting pumpkin spice glaze is about to be slathered across everything you love. The Halloween season is officially upon us now, which means it's time to talk about Batman. The Batman, obviously, as it's the first one of these things to be an actual Halloween movie. I've been fortunate to more or less skip over this most recent iteration of the inevitable drama that happens every single time a new actor takes up the cowl and we all have to have this protracted nerd debate over whether they're right for Batman. It just seems a pointless exercise to me because I think most of the actors who've portrayed Bruce Wayne have done a pretty good job, each bringing something new and unique to the character. Besides which, the best version, in my opinion, which has yet to be topped, was Halloween of 1996 when yours truly donned the cape, easily outshining Baleman and Battinson and Michael Keaton. I take Batflick out of consideration here because that take on the character was satirical and I played the role straight. The Batman was great though. I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite entry, but I would say it's tied with The Dark Knight and Mask of the Phantasm as the best straightforward Batman movies to hit the big screen. By which I mean it's basically the best version of a Batman story that's made within the parameters of what Batman is while not necessarily subverting the mythos the way something like Joker or BVS does. What we see is really what we get, but don't get me wrong, what we see is great. This is the first movie since probably the Burton years where the city of Gotham itself really feels like its own character. I thought Robert Pattinson did a great job with the year one young Bruce Wayne hunky goth thing. Zoe Kravitz is basically the definitive Catwoman now as far as I'm concerned. Gordon was great, the Penguin was great, John Turturro was inexplicably there. Andy Serkis isn't the actor I would have chosen for Alfred Pennyworth, but he did a pretty good job too. I also loved this aspect of like, it's Batman as a young dude, so of course he's gonna show off his ride. But, as the keen-eyed observer has no doubt picked up, this video is not titled Reasons the Batman is Great. If it were, we'd probably be here a little longer. No, we're here, I'm sorry to say, as I really do like to be positive on this channel, to talk about the ham-handed, overacted fly in the ointment, so to speak.
No! This is not how this was supposed to go!
Watching people uncritically praise this paper-thin, entirely perfunctory, by-the-numbers Batman serial killer as if it were the second coming of Ledger's Joker has really been my own little Emperor's New Clothes of 2022. And when I say it's perfunctory, I mean that in a movie filled with so much unique character, it really seems like the central antagonist was just this cookie-cutter villain stitched together from the dismembered pieces of other projects. And I mean it when I say the character work in this film is otherwise very impressive. Zoe Kravitz does so much to convey feline characteristics. She really is my favorite Catwoman now. I was just so here for Colin Farrell as this wise guy penguin. I love the way he waddles like an actual penguin after Batman and Gordon leave him zip-tied following the car chase. Even the Joker, in the little bit of him we see, manages to convey a lot about where this iteration of the character is coming from and where he's going. Though, if I'm being honest, I'd rather they'd kept the Red Dragon-esque deleted scene and instead cut out the ending bit where he's laughing next to Eddie. But the Riddler just didn't do it for me. Heath Ledger famously sequestered himself in a hotel room for weeks with nothing but journals and a bunch of Joker comics when constructing his character for The Dark Knight. And I'm not saying anyone who plays a Batman villain has to go to these lengths, and of course that kind of methodology is played up when promoting the movie, but I don't think Dano's even portraying a new character here, to be honest. It seems like an amalgam of his roles from Prisoners and There Will Be Blood, repurposing the serial killer design from Let Me In, depicted as a dark mirror to Bruce, which of course we've never seen in a Batman villain before, and then, just for good measure, modeled after the Joker. And I'm not pulling this comparison out of my ass. His plan is beat for beat the Joker's plan from The Dark Knight. They both target the mayor, the district attorney, the police commissioner, and Bruce Wayne / Batman for assassination. They both abduct people, murder them in viral videos, then mutilate the bodies. They both target the mob, and they both have a Killing Joke-style interrogation scene setting them up as an inverted parallel of Batman. Also, I can't be the only one to have noticed Eddie's backstory is basically the plot of Joker, right? He grew up in poverty and city services failed him, so he hates the rich kid raised in a mansion and lashes out violently at innocent people he blames for that unfairness. Not to mention the disillusion of Bruce's idealized image of Thomas Wayne being such a prominent theme in both movies. Honestly, the ending felt so tacked on, I kinda think some studio exec saw how well Joker did and just decided, we need incel shooters in the third act. Which actually ties right into what annoyed me most about this movie, which is the quite deliberate political messaging I can only describe as incoherent at best and actively reductive at worst. And you know, the politics of Batman has always been kind of a murky subject. The whole Batman is a fascist thing has been discussed to death at this point. The Dark Knight trilogy was worse, depicting gun-toting wingnuts as naive but ultimately sympathetic. In the Batman, at least they're villains, so I guess that's progress. But the only studio Batman movie that I think actually had what you could call leftist values was Joker, and not only did the online left passionately despise it, but the whole point of the film was that it subverted the Batman mythos, right? It was basically an anti-Batman movie, and honestly, it kind of annoys me that Matt Reeves took elements from this cool inversion of the Batman mythology, uninverted it, and then used it to inject the worst kind of milquetoast neoliberalism into what was otherwise a very solid Batman film.
Not safe for you here. We need to get you out, Miss Real.
I'm not going anywhere.
We're under attack, man.
Exactly. It's the problem with this city. Everyone's afraid to stand up and do the right thing, but I'm not. Excuse me.
I'm a combat pilot, Will. I belong in the air.
All straightforward Batman movies are going to have at least a light element of propaganda to them, and I'd almost be willing to forgive it here because this is probably the most I've enjoyed the Batman-Gordon dynamic in live action. But you're really gonna make your central villain this deranged incel bomber whose ultimate plan is to expose corrupt cops and politicians? I find this just as odious as Bane being a Marxist terrorist in The Dark Knight Rises whose end goal was just to kill people with no purpose. Look, I know this video has probably come off a little ranty, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. I really did enjoy this movie. I saw it multiple times in theaters, and I think Matt Reeves is a talented director who makes pretty good films. I loved his work alongside Rupert Wyatt in the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy, which I was recently very happy to hear they're continuing. Honestly, I loved everybody involved in the Batman other than Paul Dano, who I've loved in everything else I've seen him in. I really don't get the impression Riddler is the villain Reeves wanted to build a movie around. The creative passion here is in Batman, in Gordon and the Penguin and Catwoman. It's in the city of Gotham itself. I think the Riddler was a villain that a lot of people would recognize, and he's a good foil for Batman as a detective. But the way he's depicted here just feels desultory. They took pieces from films where they had more intrinsic meaning to the stories being told and pasted them together more for their aesthetic value and familiarity than to say something new or genuine. Look, you're not wrong if you really enjoyed the Riddler in this movie, because you probably hadn't seen my video yet, but now you have and you know better. Thank you for watching.